In a world where left is up and right is apparently wrong, two souls make sense of it all, or at least have fun trying. Gear up, friends, for Chicken and the Dog.
Welcome to another episode of Chicken and the Dog. I am the dog, and with me, as always, is the guy that only goes to the state fair to get a turkey leg, the chicken. What up, dog?
Depends on the state fair, but they are delicious.
They are. You definitely like to walk around with a big piece of meat in your hand.
Turkey leg.
Turkey leg. Yes, turkey leg.
Yes,
Yes,
turkey
turkey leg. Look, guys, week 14. Week 14. This is the last week of the regular season. It doesn't disappoint. It's rivalry week. Crazy things happen. And as you'll see in a few minutes, man, the implications on some of these games this year might be more so than years prior. There's just a lot of question marks out there, not only as to who goes to the conference championship, but who gets to play in the national championship. There's a lot of teams that are outside looking in that need some movement to happen. There's a lot of teams, and we'll call it the ACC, and we'll get to that in just a minute, that you have to win it all to get in. That's your only shot. So it's going to be a wild, wild ride this weekend for college football, starting Friday.
Yeah, I mean, some huge games, and it can't happen at a better time, right? Like the season has been exciting enough as it is, and the back and forth, especially with the group of five of, you know, who's going to get in, who's not. This team's up, that team's up, this team's up. Then Tulane shows up and starts holding steady, but who's really going to win out to be able to make it in there? And all of this culminates. You mentioned the ACC. Miami right now, and I don't want to get too deep into this before we dive into the rankings, but Miami right now, right on that cusp. But just like you said, you got to win. You got to win that championship in your conference to secure your spot because of the at-large bids, because of the season that Notre Dame has been able to put together after opening up at 0-2. Man, what a race to the finish.
Oh, it is, man. It's very exciting. Very, very exciting. And I'm sure next year is, I don't think the drama is going to be any less next year. I think when they go to 16, 20, 24 teams, wherever they decide to land, I don't think the drama is going to be any less than what it is now. Could be even more. I don't know. But look, let's dive into the new playoff rankings. If the playoffs were to happen today, this is who is in. Number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, Indiana. Number 3, A&M. Number 4, Georgia. Texas Tech is at 5. Oregon jumped one to number 6. Ole Miss 7. Oklahoma's in at 8. Notre Dame at 9. Alabama is at 10. BYU is, no, I take that back. It would not be BYU. It would be Miami, because they have to bring in an ACC, and then it would be Tulane. That's where we stand right now. The only other teams I think that's worth mentioning is a BYU. BYU goes to the conference championship next weekend, and they somehow upset and beat Texas Tech. I don't see that happening, by the way. They're in. And then what do you do with Texas Tech? Probably still in. You know, a lot of Texas Longhorn fans are like, we should be in. We should be in. Shut up. You're 8-3 right now. Could potentially be 9-3 after this weekend. You still have 3 losses. You should have won at least 2 of those games. I think another team to watch that's right there. There's 2 teams, in my opinion, that are on that cusp. Vanderbilt and Michigan. Watch out for Michigan. They have a chance. I mean, they're 9-2. They win this weekend, they're in the conference championship, I believe. We'll go through that in a minute. But if they win that, they're in. So a lot of movement, a lot of craziness that's going to happen. Nothing really else really stands out. Georgia Tech took a hard fall after that loss last week. They dropped 7 spots to 23. I found this interesting. Southern Cal, the prophylactics, they got smoked last week, and they dropped 2 spots.
Well, that ought to tell you something. No, there's always going to be a favoritism to some of these schools. Weight of the loss, who you lost to. They did get smoked, but they got smoked by a 10-1 Oregon. Okay. They didn't drop to, a Northwestern or, a struggling Penn State or anything like that. They dropped to a very good team in the Big Ten, a conference matchup. So they did fall down a few pegs. They're out, right? Like, so, at this point, you got 3 losses. You're not getting back in there. You talk about what happens if BYU manages to beat Texas Tech and Texas Tech would fall, but not that far. Well, what's that going to do? Because you still have to have the at-large bid for the group of 5. You still got a Notre Dame that's going to continue to win out here, and they hold their spot as an independent non-conference affiliate. That means that somebody's getting boxed out. We're already talking about the ACC likely only securing 1 spot. Somebody from the SEC or somebody from the Big Ten is going to get nudged out of the way in that series of events. Let's see what happens. It's exciting. It's a Rocky Balboa-esque fight to the end where people are taking punches, bouncing off the ropes, and coming back with a haymaker. Man, what's going to happen when the final bell rings?
Who is Clubber Lane in college football right now?
I would have to say this year it's Ohio State.
Ooh.
And do they finish off like Clubber Lane did and lose the heavyweight belt at the end?
Ooh, I like it. I like it. But look, man, let's get into the standings. We're not going to go into the group of 5 standings. I don't think there's any need in that. Because as much as I hate to say this, guys, whoever gets in as the group of 5, whether it is Tulane, whether it's North Texas, whoever it might be, South Florida, I think they're probably completely out of it now. I don't know. You're going to get smoked in the first round. You're not going to be able to compete with any of those teams that we mentioned that is already kind of locked in or in that cusp or could. I mean, even a Tulane versus a Vanderbilt, I'm sorry, you'd get smoked, right? So I don't think it's worth, I don't think it's a need to go through all of these. But let's start with the ACC. Wow. As it stands right now, you have 3 teams that are 6-1 in conference play right now. You have Virginia, you have Pitt, and you have SMU. You have Georgia Tech and Miami sitting at 6-2 and 5-2 with 2 losses. I think it's a long shot for, even though they've got Miami sitting there at number 13. As it stands right now, if Virginia, Pitt, and SMU, if 2 of those 3 teams win this weekend, there's your conference championship teams for the ACC right now. Where does Miami fall in at that point? They don't.
Well, and Miami has got a big matchup against Pitt this week. So Pitt either has the opportunity to lock down their spot in the ACC championship or create more dust and turmoil as they would then fall to a 6-2 in the conference and elevate Miami to a 6-2 in the conference. Virginia plays Virginia Tech. That's a rivalry game. Virginia Tech has caught a little bit of wind in their sail. Not saying that I think they're going to be enough to take out Virginia this week, but still drama in the ACC. Who would have thought? SMU's got to play Cal this weekend. I don't see that as being too much of a threat, but we'll see. But still, drama in the ACC, and it ain't about basketball.
No, and my gut would tell me that it's gonna be SMU and Virginia playing in the ACC championship game, and probably Virginia taking the taking the helm at that point. I'm just saying, I believe that Carson Beck is going to show up and throw to the right players like we always talk about.
That's right.
He's gonna focus on the right helmet and do it'd be the good part of Carson Beck, and we'll probably take out Pitt. But and then that completely eliminates Pittsburgh, and then it's like I said, then it's Virginia and SMU if they win out. Like I said, Virginia's probably going to smoke Virginia Tech. They are just not good this year, man. They're 2-5 in conference. It's not a good look. The Big 12. Here's another one right now. Okay, so you got Texas Tech that is just rolling, man. They've got one conference loss. Their final game is West Virginia. Probably not an issue, right? Then you've got BYU. And I'm not sure what their final game is, but they're both sitting at 7-1. If they win, they're in. And then the drama continues from that point is what happens if BYU wins, they're in. And you're right. If BYU wins, you're going to have you're not going to knock Texas Tech from number 5 out of the playoffs. If they did, I think you would have a lot of people screaming, including Chicken and the Dog, because I don't think that's right. They've been playing great football all year. They've held their own. They deserve to get in. I don't think you can punish them too much for having to play a 13th game, and that's the thing. If that's the case, that's where if you see a Texas Tech sitting at number 5, potentially even a number 4, depending on how the top 4 play out this weekend, right? Let's say they win and they end at a number 4 spot or 3 spot, and then they lose to BYU in the conference championship, and they would drop them all the way out. You would see conference championship people saying, I don't want to play them anymore.
Yeah, and Nick Saban actually alluded to that on game day last week when he was saying that he understands that playing in and winning your conference championship should certainly carry weight. Like there's value to that. But to have to play an extra game, a 13th game in your season for the conference championship, indicating that you are one of the 2 best in your respective conference, and then you lose, that should not equivalently weigh you down. So there should be weight in the victory, but there should not be detrimental weight in the loss. To go back to what you were saying about BYU, they face Central Florida this weekend. So probably another easy ticket punch for them. You're looking at the Red Raiders and the Cougars of BYU going head to head for the conference championship here. It's going to be a dogfight in that one. And I would love to see BYU take the title. Sorry, Rube. Just telling you what I would like to see. I like the drama. It's not a knock against the Red Raiders. I just like the drama. I'd love to see the Big 12 kind of bring back the strength of that conference by having 2 teams in the playoffs this year. And I think that the only way you get there is if BYU is able to knock off the Red Raiders.
Even at the expense of only 4 SEC teams in there?
I would take it. Yeah,
okay.
I really would. Because again, I want the drama. And the thing that I don't like is the 2 powerhouses, and I'm an SEC guy, but the 2 powerhouse conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, really trying to make this playoff about themselves. You know, that happens in basketball with these ridiculous preseason tournaments where it's the Big Ten versus the SEC matchup, and nobody cares down here, which is why you probably have to market it that way anyway. We're upset that we're losing football. Don't try and appease us with these ridiculous conference matchups in basketball that nobody gives a flip about until March Madness, right? Don't try and interject that into college football. College football needs to maintain that level of purity by, if you're going to have a playoff system, weight it however it needs to be weighted to get these top 12 teams in there. Conference champions should matter. I get that. But to say that the SEC, the Big Ten, they've got a deadlock on 4 spots a piece, you're tarnishing something that could be very, very shiny.
I mean, I don't disagree with you on that. I mean, I think it should be the best 12 teams. a lot of people will disagree with me on this, and that's fine. But I do like a group of 5 team being in there. I do like that. It does give them some kind of legitimacy in their programs. It helps them, and I just like it because I think they're overlooked. I think you could have. I mean, there was a time where several years ago where Central Florida, I think Central Florida could have beat a lot of the Power 5 teams. They were that great of a program. Now, do I think, I think it was Alabama that year that won the national championship, and they said, we want it too. Would they have beat an Alabama that year or an LSU that year? No, probably not. But could they have beat a middle to upper tier, some of these other conferences, some of the ACC, the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12? Maybe they were firing on all cylinders. They were a great program. So anyway, not as much drama in the Big 12 as there is in the ACC. It looks like 2 teams are probably almost a lock into the championship game. The drama comes next week with Baylor. All right, so the Big 10. This is pretty interesting. Right now, Indiana and Ohio State are 8-0 in conference. Ohio State has Michigan this weekend. Oregon is sitting at 7-1, and Michigan is sitting at 7-1. All right. Everyone else doesn't matter. They got over 2 conferences, so they're out. So you got 4 teams that have the potential of getting in. Michigan beats Ohio State this weekend. Michigan could get a bid to the Big Ten championship. I don't know who their loss is to. Then Oregon is 7-1. I think Oregon's loss is to Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana is 8-0. I don't know who they play this weekend. I'm sure you can tell.
Indiana plays Purdue, so Indiana should be 9-0 in conference play at the end of this weekend. Should be.
Who does Oregon play this weekend?
That's a good question. Let me put my coffee down.
All right. And while you're doing that, I'm going to pick mine up.
Oregon is going to Seattle this weekend to play Washington. Washington 8-3 overall, 5-3 in conference. So not an automatic ticket punch. We just talked about Indiana, Purdue. Purdue is winless in the Big Ten. They are at a big goose egg and 8 in conference play. Only 2 wins overall this year. So Indiana, like I said, should definitely punch that ticket. Oregon is going to have some work to do, but at least they don't have to travel too far. Remember, this is Oregon, Washington. This is West Coast come into the Big Ten. So both these teams get to stay pretty close to home. Washington, obviously at home. Oregon, not that far of a trip. So it'll be an interesting one to watch. I'll get into who I like later on, but this one's got a lot of meat on the bone here. Ohio State, Michigan. If Oregon can win this game and stay with one loss, that one loss being to Indiana, I think that they still keep Michigan out. I think for Michigan to get into the title game, they not only have to knock off Ohio State this weekend, but I think they got to pull hard for the Huskies.
Yeah. So yeah, how does that drama shake out, right? If Michigan wins and Oregon wins and Indiana wins, so you got 3 teams that are 8, that one's 8 or 9-0, Indiana's a lock. How do you decide between Oregon and Michigan that are both 8-1 that did not face each other? The SEC has this problem as well. They do.
So here's where it comes down to, just from high level bird's eye view optics for me. Okay. Michigan doesn't have a bad loss, but Michigan's loss is to that particular factory on the West Coast. They've had a decent season in the Big Ten, but they managed to upset the Wolverines. They also lost to Oregon. Oregon's one loss is to a currently undefeated Indiana, a currently undefeated and ranked number 2 Indiana. I think that their loss looks better than the loss that Michigan has. And I think that that's what elevates them with a one-loss record in the Big Ten over Michigan. So again, I think for Michigan to make a clear case, because beating number 1 Ohio State would be huge. As our president likes to say, huge.
Yes.
Okay. But I think that to solidify that resume, you got to be pulling for the Huskies against the Ducks.
Yeah, because Oregon beat Southern Cal, the one loss at Michigan. So I'm with you on there. That's what I think Oregon would get the nod over a Michigan. So you're right. The Michigan Wolverines, 1, they got to win. 2, they need Washington to upset Oregon. And then the drama comes in at that point. A number 15 Michigan, if they beat Ohio State, how far, even in regular season, let's just say that Oregon wins out too, right? But how does that climb that number 15 Michigan into that number 11, 10 or 11, 10 spot? I don't know. I guess there's a lot of depends on the movement up front, right?
A lot would depend on the movement up front, but I don't see that as being all that likely. I think that for Michigan to stand a shot at getting into a 12-slot playoff, that it comes with getting into the conference championship game. So again, you got to beat the Buckeyes. You got to pull for the Huskies. And it may even come down to Michigan winning that conference championship game to get in, because keep in mind that if Ohio State loses and does not make it into their conference championship, and Indiana goes on to win, they lock their bid, Ohio State is not going to fall from number 1 in the rankings to number 13, 14. They're not going to tumble that far. So Ohio State is still going to be in, friends. Okay, Oregon right now is looking like they've got a shot at being in. Michigan, of that 4, is the one that has the most work to do to climb their way into that 12 top 12 section of teams, but also to hang on tight and stay there.
That's right. Michigan needs a lot of movement all the way around. Even with the win, even if they can't make it to the conference championship, they need quite a few people that is ahead of them to actually drop, to even have a consideration of jumping up far enough. I mean, they would need like an Ole Miss, an Oklahoma, teams like this to drop some games, man. And I don't see that happen. I don't see Michigan in the playoffs this year. I don't see it.
As my good friend Ringo used to say, you get by with a little help from your friends. Michigan is going to need that this weekend.
Oh, yeah. And now let's talk about the greatest conference on earth, the SEC. And for the people that don't know the SEC and what that stands for, it is your Southeastern Conference, even though it doesn't make any sense because we have teams that are not in the Southeast, but I digress on that. All right. Here's what we got. A&M, Texas A&M Aggies is 7-0. They are playing Texas this weekend. They're in the driver's seat. When you're in, Georgia is 7-1. Ole Miss is 6-1. Alabama is 6-1. And I'll mention them. Well, Texas is 5-2, and Oklahoma is 5-2. Vandy is 5-2 as well. However, Vandy's not in a bad spot. They need some movement up front to be able to jump in. But yet they have a very big game this weekend. If they beat Tennessee, man, I mean, God, there's going to be a lot of people arguing that Vandy should be in somehow, some way. We'll see. But as far as the conference championship and who's going to win the conference, right now the Aggies are in the driving seat. If Alabama wins out, if Alabama beats Auburn this weekend in the Iron Bowl, they're in. They're in the conference championship game. And Georgia is on the outside looking in. Because of the head-to-head from Georgia to Alabama, it automatically gives them that bid. But what happens if Texas beats A&M? Then I think you have a lot of craziness. If, let's say, Georgia wins out. If Alabama wins, they're in regardless, right? Alabama wins, they're in. If A&M loses, then is it Georgia versus Alabama in the SEC championship? And Aggies are, they're not going to fall out of the top 12. They're going to still be in. A&M is in regardless, if you ask me. I don't care what you said. If Georgia beats Tech this weekend, regardless, whatever happens, I think Georgia's a lock in the playoffs as well. Or does Ole Miss get the bid? I don't know how that turns out, how that shakes out. I want to say that if A&M loses, it's Georgia.
For the conference championship? Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't see, and again, they played very, very well against Mercer this past weekend, but I don't see Auburn putting it together in such a way to topple the Crimson Tide this weekend. Yeah, I would agree with that because of the head-to-head that would give Alabama the push. Ole Miss has got to face Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, so you're likely looking at a 7-1 Ole Miss with their claim to fame. However, their loss is to the Crimson Tide. So that's, again, where you hold those Ole Miss.
Ole Miss losses to Georgia.
That's correct. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I got confused in my statement. Again, top heavy there. We lost to y'all. Y'all lost to them. They lost to this other guy.
It's crazy.
It's a whole lot of pushing and shoving there. But if the Aggies happen to drop to the Longhorns, which we'll get into later, it just creates more of a carousel of chaos for the SEC, making it even more exciting. So, yes, we are the best conference. We have the most drama in our race for who's even going to play for the conference championship, and not because they're all terrible. It's because they're all that good.
Yeah, I mean, you've got 4 teams that it's a difference between the SEC and the ACC. You got 4 or 5 teams in the ACC that's trying to win this conference, get this bid to the conference championship to be able to win the conference championship just to get in the playoffs. You got 5 SEC teams right now that are in that if it was played today that are in the playoffs regardless. 5 teams. I don't, after looking at this and really studying everything, my gut tells me that we're only going to have 4. I think that's how it will probably shake out. I would like to see 5. Actually, I take that back. I would like to see the best teams in, with the exception of the one group of 5. Other than that one, I want to see the best teams in. And I know a lot of people give Notre Dame a lot of slack right now as far as, well, you're not part of a conference, so you shouldn't get in. Shut up. Do I believe that the committee is always going to show favoritism to a Notre Dame? I do. But Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman, if you ask me, they've earned this spot. Yes, I know they'll have 2 losses, but man, since those 2 losses, they went on a tear and have beat everyone that is in front of them handedly. So I like Notre Dame in there, but as far as the SEC, I mean, we'll have 4 teams. Well, in my opinion, we'll have A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, and the Crimson Tide in there, potentially Oklahoma as well.
Yeah, and the thing about Notre Dame, too, that they get so much grief because they're not in a conference. They're an independent, and there's going to be that slight where whether you're Big Ten, whether you're SEC, even maybe the Big 12 wants to say this. I don't know that the ACC has much of a comment this year, but our conference schedule is tougher, and they don't even play in a conference. Well, you're right, but they also don't play a lackluster schedule. Notre Dame plays some big games. SEC teams play some big games in a conference schedule, but some of those games in the conference schedule aren't really that great. The way that it hashed out this year, if you were looking at playing South Carolina at the beginning of the season, you thought, well, that's going to be one we're going to have to tighten up the chin straps for. And the way it played out, man, not so much. That didn't really help your strength of schedule to play against the Gamecocks in the SEC this year. Was it a conference battle? Did you end up with some bumps and bruises at the end? Absolutely. But it still didn't really bolster the argument that the SEC schedule is better than anybody on the planet. maybe better than any other conference schedule on the planet, but Notre Dame schedules in such a way that they overcome that.
I think so too. And yes, they schedule some teams that are relevant. I mean, they played Miami, they lost. They played A&M, they lost. But they played your favorite team on the West Coast, the Fighting Prophylactics, and won. They play them every year. So I mean, I like Notre Dame in this. I mean, if I didn't think Notre Dame deserved it, I would be arguing against them, But I really think that they're a great team and have the potential to actually go deep into the playoffs. I think they're legitimate. Look, man, let's dive into these games because there's a lot to talk about. We're going to go through the top 25. Um, so at number 13, Utah, that is one of those teams in the Big 12. They're 9-2 in the Big 12. They're playing Kansas, who is 5-6. This is one of those teams that's on that outside looking in, right? If Utah could win this game and maybe BYU drop a game, is Utah one of those teams that could find themselves playing at Texas Tech? I don't know. Potentially.
Potentially, yeah. There's a lot to play for here. You're not going to get into your conference championship as Utah this year, I don't believe. However, to say that you get into that group of 12 fighting for the whole thing, very likely. So they won't be taking it easy against the Rock Shock Jayhawk. I like the Utes in this one.
I do too. And they're favored. Utah is favored by 11.5 points, 59.5 over and under. Yeah, I like the Utes for sure. We talked about this game already. I don't think there's much to talk about. A number 2, 11-0, 8-0 in the Big Ten. Indiana has to go to Purdue, which could be a very hostile environment, and take on a 2-9, 0-8 in the Big Ten. Indiana is favored to win by 28.5 points. Look, if I can give Indiana any advice whatsoever, knock this game out early. Pull Mendoza out. Pull your guys out because you're going to need all of your starters in the conference championship game and moving forward.
30 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Mendoza has had a ridiculous season for the Hoosiers. The only Boilermakers that people will be receiving enjoyment from on Saturday will be of the liquid variety. I like Indiana big in this game.
Yeah. The Battle of Arizona, number 25 Arizona is taking on number 20 Arizona State. And look, can I just give a hats off to the state of Arizona right now, man? Both of your teams are in the top 25, man. Great job. It's been a while since both of them have actually been relevant. Arizona is 8-3, 5-3 overall. So is Arizona State, man. They're 8-3 and 6-2 overall. But I mean, it's a great season for both of them. Arizona is favored to win by 1.5 points. They are playing in Tempe, Arizona, not Tucson. Yeah, give me Arizona State for old Scattaboo.
Give me Arizona State as well. I like the Sun Devils in this one. They've been here. They were here last year, so a lot of these players have been in this type of meaningful matchup before. Give me the Sun Devils.
And those games we were just discussing happen on Friday, my friend. We got 2 days of great football. First game that's happening on Saturday. Number 1, Ohio State, 11-0 overall. 8-0 in the Big Ten, takes on a number 15, a 9-2, 7-1 in the Big Ten, Michigan, in Ann Arbor. Ohio State is favored by 9.5 points. Ryan Day has not. There's one thing that he's failed to do. He's won a conference championship. He's won a national championship. He has not beat the Michigan Wolverines. Is Michigan to Ryan Day as Alabama is to Kirby? I don't know.
I'm going to say not this year. I think Julian Just Saying shows up in a big way and owns the Wolverines on Saturday. I talked about it earlier that if we were to make this a Rocky Balboa film, I like Ohio State as Clubber Lang, and I think that they go down in the final round, meaning the championship game for the Natty. I think that they stay undefeated until then. I think that they beat Michigan. I think that they end up beating Indiana in the Big Ten championship game. And I think that they go all the way to win the big one and fall flat on their face. That is my long-term prediction.
Ooh.
Bringing it back to this weekend, I like the Buckeyes in this one. I don't think they skip a beat.
I actually like Ohio State in this game as well. I do. I do think Julian Sand is playing great football. That defense is rocking behind Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Smith. I mean, there's only one word that comes to mind when you think of this kid. It's stud. Just think it's too much for Michigan, but we shall see. Number 5, Texas Tech. They're 10-1, 7-1 in the Big 12. Takes on a 4-7, struggling 2-6 in the Big 12, West Virginia. They are playing in Morgantown, West Virginia. That's a stadium that you and I would love to visit at some point. I heard that it's really a cool place to go. But Texas Tech is favored by 24.5 points, over and under 53.5. I think Tech rolls through them.
Rube, give me the Red Raiders.
Ooh. Rube. All right, here's the next one. At 9-2, number 12, they're 9-2, 5-2 in the ACC. Miami, the Fighting Becks, is taking on a number 22, 8-3, 6-1 in the ACC. Pittsburgh. They are playing in Pennsylvania. Miami's favored to win that game by 6.5 points. The over and under is 51.5. Give me Carson Beck and the Miami Hurricanes. I think he pulls out a big win. He needs it.
Give me Carson Beck to jump into double digits with interceptions this weekend.
Ooh.
I like Pitt in this game.
No.
They have been playing as hard as they know how. I like the Panthers for the upset on Saturday.
And really throw everything crazy in the ACC.
That's absolutely right. And hey, maybe it gives Carson Beck the best position going into the draft, because you could argue that coming back this year may have helped his bank account, but not necessarily his draft stock. Maybe gets him drafted by the right team in April to be in the right spot as QB2 and work his way up to what I believe is going to be a long-term successful career in the NFL.
Yep. We already kind of mentioned this next game a little bit. UCF, University of Central Florida, they're 5-6, 2-6 in the Big 12. Takes on a number 11, 10-1, 7-1 in the Big 12. BYU, they are playing in Utah. Give me Brigham Young, man. I think they're going to come in here and I mean, BYU's favorite 17.5 points. I don't know if that's enough, to be honest with you. I think they're going to make a statement win because they know they got to face Texas Tech again. And they want to be able to solidify themselves, whether they lose that game or not, to still have an argument. I think they win big, big, big.
Yeah, I agree. I like BYU in this one. I think that they have had a fantastic season. Their one loss coming to another team in conference who's having a fantastic season. UCF. There's still a lot of work to do to get back to where you were. You're on the right path, but you're nowhere near there yet. You're going to suffer a setback on Saturday when the Cougars take it home.
Number 6, 10-1, 7-1 in the Big Ten. Oregon takes on an 8-3, 5-3 in the Big Ten. Washington. They are playing in Seattle. Oregon is favored by 6.5 points. I think Dan Lanning and that offense and that defense especially the defense, is way too much for Washington. I like the Ducks, and I like them big in this game. They're another team that I think is going to make a statement win in this and try to solidify themselves not only in the playoffs, but maybe even a chance to take into the championship game. I like Oregon a lot.
We've seen so much from Oregon over the years in the type of football they play. You alluded to it several weeks ago about this Oregon team just doesn't seem as flashy, maybe as high-powered as previous iterations of the Ducks. What I like about what Dan Lanning has done is he has brought in a workman-like championship attitude to Oregon, and that is what prevails, not high-powered, flashy offenses that, yes, we can run past you in our Ferrari and hope that you don't catch up later. I like Oregon in this one. I think it's still going to be a game where they've got to continue that workmanlike approach. I don't know that it'll be all of that high-powered offense outscoring you by such a great margin. I think there could be a lot of points on the board, but I think it's going to be a little bit close. But Oregon definitely controls this game and hangs on with the W.
You know, it made me think about that, what you just said. Remember when Dan Lanning took over the Oregon Ducks, man, Oregon was that high-powered. That's what they had, high-powered offense. Who did he have coming in? Bo Nix. He had Bo Nix as his quarterback. What is Bo Nix doing right now in NFL? He's lighting it up. You know, I mean, I think he's number 4. I think he's a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, man. He's leading those Broncos, doing a great job. Then he had Dylan Gabriel, another guy that was able to sling it. Now I think he's playing that Dan Lanning, I learned from Kirby Smart type team where they're going to be well-rounded all the way around the board and they're going to wear you out. They don't have to be flashy. They're just going to beat you. And I think that's where Oregon is at now. 3-8, 2-5 in the ACC. Virginia Tech, the Fighting Franklins, is taking on a really good, surprising Virginia. Virginia is 9-2, 6-1 in the ACC. They are playing in Charlottesville. Virginia is favored to win that game by 8.5 points. 53.5 is over and under. I like Virginia in this game a lot.
Yeah, again, Virginia Tech has seen a little bit of wind come into their sails here toward the second half of the season, but nowhere near enough. The little bit of gust that your boat has caught out on the lake is nowhere near enough to keep up with the high-powered motor that's powering the Cavaliers. They're going to leave you safely in their wake on Saturday. Give me Virginia.
Yeah, this next game is the annual Liberal Retard Bowl. UCLA, a 3-8, 3-5 in the Big Ten, is taking on a number 17 Fighting Prophylactics. They are 6-3, 6-2 in the Big Ten. Southern Cal is favored to win that game by 21.5 points. I don't know where Nico lies in this game. I'm assuming he's back from concussion protocol. I'm assuming. I don't know. I don't follow them that well because they're not relevant. But I'm still going to say the Fighting Prophylactics win this game.
I'm not a betting man. So anything that we say here, please don't put your money on the line based on what comes out of my mouth, although I'm usually right. But this game in particular, I'm going to put out this disclaimer. I would not bet with my head on this game, and I certainly would not suggest that you put your money where my opinions lie. Friends, I will never, ever, ever, if they played a Girl Scout troop, pull for that factory on the West Coast. Give me the Bruins all the way on Saturday.
A 1-10, 0-7 in the American is taking on a 9-2, 6-1 in the American Tulane. I don't think that this game, the scheduling could have been any more perfect for Tulane. They're going to play their final regular season team against one of the worst teams in the American League. Tulane is favored by 30.5 points. They're going to roll right through Charlotte, just like Georgia did.
Yeah, and not a whole lot of question marks around their head coach as he pulled his name from consideration last week in the Florida job. I don't know where he is on anybody else's list for any other positions. That might be an in development type of thing, but certainly no question marks there for these players right now. They will cruise over Charlotte.
Number 21, SMU. They are 6-3 or 8-3. Excuse me, 8-3, 6-1 in the ACC. Take on a Cal. They're 6-5, 3-4 in the ACC. SMU is favored by 13.5 points. That is a long ways away from Dallas, Texas, all the way to Berkeley, California. I don't know if SMU can handle the environment of all the No Kings protests that could possibly be going on in this place. So, I but I think they prevail. I like SMU.
I like SMU in this ball game. I think that maybe there'll be a peace rally or maybe another No Kings rally. People will be doing other things in Berkeley on Saturday rather than trying to pull for the Cal Bears. I like SMU in this one.
Mm-hmm. And this next game, historically, has been a pretty big game. It has. Not this year. A number 9 Notre Dame, they are 9-2, takes on a 4-7 Stanford. They are in Stanford, California. Notre Dame is favored by 32.5 points. I think Jeremiah Love probably has about 600 to 700 yards and maybe 15 touchdowns in this game. It's going to be ridiculous. Yeah, I have Notre Dame win it big.
Yeah, Jeremiah Love right now sitting at 1,300 yards on the year, 17 touchdowns. He will do nothing but improve those numbers on Saturday. It's going to take whistles and the final blast to stop this Notre Dame team from just destroying a Saturday afternoon in Stanford, California. I like the Irish. Huge.
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 Hey, number 4, 10-1. Well, we're in the SEC now. Number 4, 10-1 Georgia takes on a number 23, 9-2. Good season, Georgia Tech. Don't want to take anything away from them, Yellow Jackets, by any means. They are playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium this year. Why? I'm not sure. Why we're not playing at their stadium, I don't think that gives them any home field advantage by any means. I would say that it's neutral at this point. And I don't know if you play it at home that it's that much of a home field advantage. I guess you can control tickets at that point. But Georgia's favored by 13.5 points. The over and under is 59.5. I mean, I like Georgia in this game. They took Georgia to 8 overtimes last year. It was crazy. Haynes King, stud. But I think last week's loss may have really deflated Georgia Tech and their hopes of getting into the playoffs. And how does that affect that locker room? They're number 23. They're not going to get in the playoffs. They're not going to get in the championship game. I think Georgia wins pretty big.
What I think happened to Georgia Tech, I don't see it as taking so much wind out of their sails that they are just so deflated that they're not going to show up for Georgia. Conversely, what I think that the slowdown, if you will, for Georgia Tech here in the second half of the season has shown Georgia is that these guys bleed and we can beat them up and still come out on top. I think that it does more for Georgia's confidence, not that they lack any in the first place, but I think it does more for Georgia's confidence than it does to deflate Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech's going to show up and Haynes King is going to play his best game on Saturday. I just don't know, based on what we've seen from this team the last several weeks, that even that's going to be enough to beat Georgia the way that Georgia's playing this year. Keep in mind, Georgia's one loss is to Alabama. Alabama is still, in the minds of a lot of people, the best team in the SEC right now. I just think Georgia's just too much for Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and Georgia is that team, that Ohio State team last year, where at the beginning of the season, they just had a lot of things to work out. But man, at the end of the stretch, they just peaked. And that's where Georgia is playing right now. They are playing great football. They're peaking, in my opinion, peaking at the right time. The one thing that I think Georgia has established over the last month or so that is very dangerous is they've got a running game, man, that is really tough. And so I like Georgia not only in this game, but I like Georgia down the stretch. I just think they're playing well. The next one is the Egg Bowl. The Gooch loves the Egg Bowl.
Gooch loves the Egg Bowl.
Loves the Egg Bowl. So a 10-1, 6-1 in the SEC. Number 7 Ole Miss is taking on, are you ready, guys? A 5-6, 1-6 in the SEC. Mississippi State Bulldogs. I don't care what anybody says. What a heck of a season for these Mississippi State Bulldogs. Even if you lose to Ole Miss this weekend, my gosh, guys, You went 5-7. Great game, great look, great way to pull this season around, man. This year is way better. Ole Miss is favored to win that game by 7.5 points. They are playing in Starkville. That's probably why it's only 7.5 points, and it's the Egg Bowl. Give me Ole Miss in this game. I like Lane Kiffin. I think he's going to have his locker room under control with all the hoopla that's going around with Lane Kiffin. I think he'll be fine.
You mention it right there at the end, all of the hoopla. I will say this. I think that Ole Miss has handled this past week about as poorly as you can. And that's on the heels of how we've seen LSU handle the dismissal of Brian Kelly and bringing the governor into it and just that whole weird circus. Ole Miss, athletic department, it would have been a lot better if you'd have just stayed quiet and let this thing play out and let Lane tell you. You can always have your backup plans and procedures in place, waiting on the proverbial snap, if you will. But to bring in deadlines and public conversation about the whole topic only breeds doubt in your locker room. So that is going to be the big question. Chambliss came out and made a statement about where this team is and that they weren't paying attention to what their coach may or may not do. They were following their coach to victory and to continue to proceed through the magical year that they are currently having. I believe that's the attitude, but everybody has what? As Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. This game is a big game. A terrible Mississippi State still presents challenges to a great Ole Miss. We saw it last year. Mississippi State was a dumpster fire, and they still went toe-to-toe with Ole Miss. They lost, but it's rivalry week, folks. You can't have any of this doubt or question marks going on in your locker room. Do I think that that's going to translate necessarily into a loss for Lane Kiffin and the Rebels? No, but I think it's going to be close. Look for Mississippi State to make this a dogfight. This is going to come down to the fourth quarter and whether or not Lane Kiffin has given his locker room enough to believe in to make it through Saturday.
Yeah. I guess we'll know Lane Kiffin's future after about 4:00, maybe, on Saturday.
Maybe we will, maybe we won't. It's Lane Kiffin.
We won't be on. Hey, we will not be recording prior to the announcement. We're not going to have another episode. So I think that it's important right now that the chicken and the dog, not only we already predict who was going to win this game. Now let's predict, does he stay? And if not, where does he go?
This is a tough one for me. I think it comes down to the following. Ole Miss has said that they will match whatever they've got to match to keep him in Oxford from a salary standpoint. As I understand it, based on the reading that I've done, the difference maker is going to come with the NIL money that LSU is working to put together to say, not only are we going to make you one of the highest paid college football coaches in the country, but we're going to back it with the amount of money that you need to do nothing short of provide us with a championship roster. Ole Miss, for whatever reason, has not matched in NIL funds the Alabamas, the Georgias, the LSUs, the Texas A&Ms of the world. Why? But I'll tell you this. If I'm Lane Kiffin, money's great, but I've already got a lot of it. What motivates me now might not necessarily be a paycheck as much as a championship. Lane Kiffin wants championships, plural. I think that you get there a lot faster with the NIL money that LSU is waving around than you do with Ole Miss saying, well, we'll pay you what they're going to pay you. What about my players, big guy?
I'm with you on that. I don't know. I really don't have. I mean, if you'd have asked me a week ago, I'd have said he's staying at Ole Miss. He's staying. He's not going anywhere. But I don't know if that's really true or not. I don't know if I have that same strong feeling anymore. But I will think about this. You talk about NIL and what LSU is offering. I know what they're saying, but they still haven't settled the lawsuit with Brian Kelly. there's no telling how much money they've got to come out of pocket to be able to pay this cat. Does that, I mean, how does that affect that NIL money? Does it? Is LSU that wealthy? Are they that wealthy to be able to overcome that as well? I don't know the answer to that. So if he leaves, he's going to Baton Rouge.
Yes, 100%.
If he leaves, he's going to Baton Rouge. Maybe he doesn't leave. Maybe he stays and hopes to get the job at Alabama at some point. We'll see. I don't know.
I don't really know that that's on his radar so much. Not that I think that there's hard feelings between Lane Kiffin and Alabama and the time that he spent there. But I think that Lane Kiffin wants to forge his own path and not follow in anybody's footsteps. So I don't see him necessarily being, even a future heir apparent at Alabama. That doesn't play out in my mind. But hey, I've never met Lane, sat down, talked with him about this one-on-one. Maybe that's exactly what he wants one day, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, and I'll say this last thing about him before we move on to the next game is this: if he doesn't win, let me phrase that: if he doesn't leave to take LSU or Florida, either one, he's never going to leave Ole Miss until an Ohio State, an Alabama, a Georgia, or something, a top 2 or 3 team opens up. If he doesn't leave this time, he's not going to. He's going to pass up Florida or LSU. That's a pretty hard. I mean, you're taking a pretty hard stance at that point. So I don't know. We'll see. The next team. So the next game in the SEC this weekend is on Saturday at 12 o'clock. A 5-6 Kentucky takes on a 7-4 Louisville. In Louisville, Louisville's favored by 3.5 points. I think Bob Stoops wins, or Mark Stoops wins this game. I do. I think Kentucky wins.
I agree. Louisville's had kind of an up and down year, obviously with a 7-4 record. Not a bad year, but just a fighting to a bowl finish type of year for the Louisville Cardinals. Kentucky has the opportunity here to win on Saturday and work their way into a bowl game. I think that this is Stoops' way of claiming that he's righted the ship. We talked about in the results show Cutter Bowley showing that progression as he's worked his way up the roster this season. Didn't come in as the starter, and now he is the man at quarterback for the Kentucky Wildcats. I like Kentucky in this one.
All right, this next game is a non-conference game. It's the Battle of South Carolina.
The Palmetto Bowl.
Yes. So a 6-5 Clemson is taking on a 4-7 Carolina. They are playing in Columbia, South Carolina, Williams-Brice Stadium. South Carolina is favored to win this game by 2.5 points, over and under 46.5. Look, if South Carolina shows up like they did last week against Coastal Carolina, and Coastal Carolina is not a chump team. They had a good record. They've been playing great football. I think South Carolina wins this game. I think Shane Beamer needs this win. I like South Carolina in this. I think it's a close game like it was last year, but I think Lenore Sellers and Shane Beamer, I think they overcome, and I think they win a good game this weekend.
So depending on your perspective of the story and who you found yourself more excited to read about, South Carolina has been a very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of a team this year. And whether you're a Hyde fan or a Jekyll fan, usually it wasn't your version that showed up on Saturdays. In fact, your favorite may have only shown up 4 times. Other than that, 7 big L's for the Gamecocks this year. I was talking with a Clemson fan earlier in the week, and his comment was virtually the same about his Clemson Tigers, and he did not think that Clemson was going to be able to beat South Carolina this weekend, whereas I was coming from a standpoint of, I don't know if we could beat y'all either. So there's not a lot of belief in either fan base, just because of this is not what any of us expected. Certainly the orange and purple thought they were going to get more out of their Tigers, not only in conference, but likely with a shot to the playoffs this year, as did South Carolina. It did not go that way. I will say this. If South Carolina shows up and shows up for all 4 quarters, Shane, then yes, I think South Carolina can win this game. Clemson has shown some weaknesses up front, not only in their run game, which has been sporadic, but also in protecting their quarterback. But what's that sound like? That's right. That sounds a lot like the offensive front for South Carolina, too. This is going to be nothing but clean, old-fashioned hate in the state of South Carolina. Look for this one to come down to the wire. It's in Columbia. In this rivalry matchup, typically home field advantage goes to the visitor. So Clemson could easily squeak this one out, but I look for it to be a fight to the finish. I'm going to pull for my Gamecocks in this one, but we'll see what happens.
Spurs up.
Nothing to lose and everything to play for.
Yeah, that's right. This next game, man, look, this thing's got a lot of implications as well, man, if you ask me. A 7-4, 3-4 in the SEC takes on a 9-2, 5-2 in the SEC, number 8 Oklahoma. They are playing in Norman. Home is favored by 10.5 points. Over and under is 36.5. So they're not giving very many points in this game. I think John Mateer has a great game. I think Venables is doing a fantastic job. I think being in Norman makes a difference. I like Oklahoma in this game because they need it. If they lose, they're out. It's too much.
I like Oklahoma in this game because of John Mateer. I don't think that he has a blowout game. They've struggled offensively in putting points on the board the last couple of games. LSU, their only claim to success this year is really centered on their defense. LSU has an outstanding defense. Oklahoma has an outstanding defense. I look for this to be close, but Oklahoma has the offense to be able to compensate. I look for them to squeak by and take this one.
And they have a coach.
And they've got a coach. This is the please come to Baton Rouge loss for LSU.
That's right. This next game, good gracious, the Battle of Tennessee. A number 14, 9-2, 5-2 in the SEC, Vanderbilt. That's right, my friends. I said it. 9-2, 5-2 in the SEC. Number 14, Vanderbilt, the Fighting Pavias, is taking on a number 19. When, you tell me, before I even say this, when's the last time that this game is taking place at the end of the season like it always does, and Tennessee and Vanderbilt is ranked higher than Tennessee? I don't know if it's ever happened.
I was going to say, I'd go with half past never.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's ever happened.
So number 14 Vanderbilt is taking on a 8-3, 4-3 in the SEC. Number 19 Tennessee Volunteers. They are playing in Knoxville. It's going to be a hostile environment, no doubt about it. Tennessee is favored to win this game by 3.5 points. My opinion is this. I know Tennessee is a great team. They're a good team. And Josh Heupel, hats off to this man. I think he's done a fantastic job coaching this team. No doubt about it. This environment, I said it a minute ago, how hostile. I never want to go to a Georgia game in Neyland Stadium. I never want to go. I don't want to fight no one. I rather love on people. And I just think I've heard so many things. It's a very hostile environment. However, I don't think it's enough to overcome the talent level that you are playing against when it comes to Diogo Pavia, Burt, Ernie. And I'm telling you, I think Vanderbilt wins this game.
Let me pose this. Name a hostile environment over the last 2 seasons that Vanderbilt hasn't had to play in, and including their own home turf in Nashville. With the exception maybe of this year, most attendees to a Vanderbilt home football game were likely from the visiting team as they went to see their Crimson Tide march to victory, their Georgia Bulldogs take home an automatic W, their Kentucky Wildcats go through the conference. It was mostly outsiders coming in to enjoy a weekend in Nashville and watch your team certainly win. Vanderbilt is used to playing in front of a hostile, overwhelmingly anti-crowd, whether they've done it at home and certainly when they've done it on the road. The more that they've won, the more angry those teams on the other side got because you weren't coming here and beating us. You weren't going to come into Columbia and beat the Gamecocks. Yeah, they did. You weren't going to go into Florida and beat the Gators. You weren't going to go here. You weren't. And Vanderbilt just continues to work through and pile up wins. This weekend, it's Knoxville. I think that Diego Pavia, well above drinking age, quickly approaching retirement age, tells the Volunteers when they say, you're not going to come into Knoxville and do that here, he says, hold my beer. And he beats the socks off of the Volunteers on Saturday. Yes, Heupel is a good coach. I think Clark Lee is that much better because of what he's done and where he's done it. He's got his Commodores prepared for Saturday, anchor down.
When you said Diego would say, hold my beer, are you sure it's not hold my insure?
I don't think he's there yet. But maybe it's an insure with a kicker. I don't know.
Maybe so. I don't know, man. But anchored down, man. It's been a fun season. It's been a fun last 2 years of watching this Vanderbilt team under Diego, man, and Clark Lee. And I hope this does not change one bit. I hope Vandy just keeps going and going. It's fun watching these guys, no doubt about that. All right, a 7-4, 3-4 in the SEC. The Evil One, Missouri, takes on a 2-9, 0-7 in the SEC. Mizzou is favored by 2.5 points. They are playing in favor of Arkansas. Give me Mizzou. I like them in this game.
Yeah, give me Mizzou. Arkansas just hasn't been able to do much to stop anybody this year, so I don't see anything different this weekend. Missouri rolls all over the Hogs.
5-6 Florida State takes on a 3-8 Florida Gators. They are playing in Gainesville this year. Florida's favored by 1.5 points, 51.5 over and under. Look, I like Florida in this game. I think the Gators I think DJ Lagway, I think they're going to put it together and beat Florida State.
What a weird year for both of these teams. We certainly expected more from Florida. We thought that Napier had turned a corner of some sorts last season. We thought Lagway was coming into a Heisman candidacy year. Florida State got off to a great start early, and then both teams faltered hard. And I think they're both just waiting on the final whistle to blow, if you will, and just let's put this year behind us. This is one of those games where we said it a lot last year, not as much this year, but here it is. Somebody's got to win. At the end of this, one of these two teams is going to have more points than the other, and that's the way it'll close out. If I had to put a marker on it, I'd lay it up at Florida. I think the Gators are going to end up, like you said, figuring a way, even if that way is, well, we didn't turn it over as many times as the other guy. Somebody's got to win. Go Gators.
That's right. This next game, man, played every year. It's one of the biggest games. It's one of the biggest rivalries in college football, hands down, man. I mean, I put it right up there with that Michigan-Ohio State, that hatred between two teams. The only difference is this one is in-state, right? And I do believe last year at this game that was played in Tuscaloosa, I think Uncle Kenny was found. They found him passed out under the bleachers. He may have had a few other people laying around with him. I'm not going to go into that. I heard it was an ugly mess. I expect Uncle Kenny to be at this game, probably doing some of the exact same antics as he always does. He loves this game. But a number 10 9-2, 6-1 in the SEC. Alabama Crimson Tide has to take the drive down to the Plains at Jordan-Hare Stadium and take on a 5-6, 1-6 in the SEC Auburn Tigers, War Eagles, whatever. Alabama's favored by 6.5 points. Look, man, I like Alabama in this game. They have a lot to win for. If they're the same team, if they don't win, they're out. So, and I just think there's too much. And I think Alabama is too much. Auburn doesn't have a head coach at this point. I like the Crimson Tide, and I actually like it by more than 6.5 points.
This is one of those rivalries where it lives true to form in that you take your record and you throw it out the window because at Saturday at kickoff, it doesn't matter. You are lining up against the other guy, and all they want to do is hit you and run flat over you. This is one of those rivalries where when you are born, your parents make a declaration on your birth certificate, not only of their names, but of which college you will pull for. You are raised in the Baptist church with stories of David and Goliath and Saban and Jordan-Hare Stadium. You are indoctrinated into one side or the other, and it all comes to a head on this weekend. Folks, your hair will be blown back. This is going to be a match up. I don't care, but the Tide's too much.
Yeah.
They crest and roll all over Auburn on Saturday.
You won't hear me say this often, but roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
That was for you, Senior Chief. Love you, buddy. That leaves us with one more game. One more. And this game has, and I've said this a lot on this show because it holds true, a lot of implications on this game. There's a lot of implications in this game, I think. This game had been missing from college football for quite some time, many years, man. And it was brought back last year. And Texas went into College Station last year and handled business, embarrassed the Aggies in College Station. I didn't see that. I thought the Aggies would prevail. I thought the atmosphere would be too much for them. But this is what we got. We got a number 3, undefeated, 11-0, 7-0 in the SEC. Texas A&M, the Fighting Elkos, is taking on a 8-3, 5-2, number 16 Texas. A&M is favored to win this game by 2.5 points. They are playing in Austin. I believe that what Sarkisian said at the beginning of the season is going to hold true. I think it's too hard to go undefeated in the SEC. I think those days are really, I'm not going to say they're completely gone, but I think that it's going to be a rarity to see a 12-0 undefeated SEC team with the way the current landscape of college football is now. I think that holds true. And I think Arch Manning has a massive game. Texas defense steps up. This will be, in my opinion, the best team that A&M has faced this year. And I like Texas to win this game.
Okay, let's see how you stack up against the logic of my Uncle Kenny. I have, friends, in my hands the Rivalry Weekend edition of his weekly letter. The river runs red on Thanksgiving, or it used to. Colorado, that lazy brown ribbon that splits Austin, turns the color of burnt orange when the Longhorns march down Congress Avenue, and then, a few hours later, when the Aggies used to come roaring in from the east on Highway 21. The same water somehow looked maroon, thick as old blood. 2 tribes, 1 state. 1 game that mattered more than church, more than politics, more than whatever war we happened to be fighting at the time. Texas and Texas A&M, Bevo and Reveille. Hook 'em and gig 'em. A century of hate stitched together by geography and pride and the particular kind of loneliness that comes from being born in a place too big to ever really know. It started like all the best feuds, over something small and stupid. In 1894, the Texas legislature carved a branch campus out of the prairie in College Station and called it the Agricultural and Mechanical College of Texas. Austin kept the main campus, the ivory tower, the law school, the money. College Station got dirt and cows and a military mandate. The Longhorns looked east and saw hayseeds in uniform. The Aggies looked west and saw soft city boys who'd never pulled a calf in a February sleet storm. By the time they first played football in 1894, the resentment was already baked in. Texas won 38-0 that day on a field of clay and goat heads beside the Brazos, and somewhere in the lopsided score, the template was set. One side always had more. The other side always wanted it. They joined the Southwest Conference together in 1915, a rickety little league of church schools and land-grant giants that somehow held the whole thing together with chewing gum and Jesus. For 79 years, the game lived on Thanksgiving weekend, usually Thanksgiving itself, a secular sacrament played while turkey cooled on tables from Lubbock to Lake Charles. The series became the conference's spine. SMU had money. Arkansas had Bears. Baylor had Baptist, but only Texas and Texas A&M had each other. They beat the hell out of everybody else and then saved the finest hate for the last Thursday in November. Darrell Royal and Bear Bryant circled each other like old gunfighters, Royal with his wraparound shades and short-sleeve sweaters, looking like a West Texas insurance man who could diagram your coverage and your soul in the same breath. Bryant with the cold-blooded stare, the gravel voice, chain smoking on the sideline like a man who knew the Reaper was already in the press box taking notes. In 1963, Jackie Sherrill, still a Bryant assistant then, watched Royal's wishbone shred the Aggies 15-13 in College Station. Watched the Corps of Cadets stand silent for the first time anyone could remember. Watched Bryant throw his headset so hard it left a dent in the plaster wall of the visitors' locker room. 10 years later, when Bryant finally beat Royal in 73, he walked straight past the cameras, past the bourbon, past everything, and told a writer, "I just wanted to beat that son of a bitch one time before I died." He said it like a man confessing a murder. The names pile up like cordwood. Joe Ruett, the Aggie All-American killed on Okinawa. John David Crow, Heisman Trophy winner who played the 57 game with a cast on his broken hand because A&M needed him that bad. James Street and the Wishbone Miracle in Fayetteville that set up the 69 shootout. Dat Gwynn sacking Ricky Williams on 4th down in 1998, the last time the game ever meant a conference title. You say them out loud in certain bars between Austin and Bryan, and people still buy you a beer or throw a punch, depending on the color of your shirt. And then suddenly silence. In 2011, the money got too loud. Texas wanted its own network. A&M wanted out from under the Longhorn shadow. The Big 12 cracked along its oldest fault line. On July 1st, 2012, the Aggies joined the SEC and the rivalry died, or at least went into a coma. No press release, no funeral, just a calendar page that turned and left a hole where Thanksgiving used to be. For 10 years, they didn't play. 10 Thanksgivings came and went without the bands, without the bonfire smoke drifting over the pines, without the state shutting down at 2:30 p.m. the way it does when God and football overlap. College Station tried to replace it with something else, LSU, Alabama, whoever showed up in November wearing purple or crimson. But it never fit. The Aggie yell leaders would scream themselves raw and then look across the field at an opponent who didn't know the words to the war hymn, didn't understand why 90,000 people were sawing imaginary logs in the air. In Austin, they scheduled Oklahoma every year and pretended the Red River Shootout could ever be enough. It was like a man leaving his wife and discovering that every other woman smells wrong. The decade apart was its own kind of ache. Former players grew old and soft around the middle. Children were born who had never seen the game live. Recruiters in high school gyms had to explain to five-star receivers why the two biggest programs in the state no longer played each other. And the kids looked at them like they were speaking Aramaic. The bonfire stopped burning in 1999 after the collapse, and then the game itself stopped burning in 2011, and a generation of Aggies came to believe the universe had simply decided they weren't allowed to have nice things. But blood remembers. In 2021, the SEC schedule spit out the impossible. Texas was coming to College Station after all. Not as Big 12 cousins, but as a future conference mate. The Longhorns dragged kicking and screaming into the same league that had swallowed A&M a decade earlier. The contract was signed in 2024 for renewal every year. Thanksgiving weekend again, College Station and Austin alternating like always. The prodigal hatred came home. Last year, 2024, the first one back, felt like waking up from a long drunk to find the house still standing. Field shook so hard the seismographs at Texas A&M registered it. The core marched deeper than anyone could remember. The Longhorns brought their new money and their new coach and the same old smirk. And the Aggies beat them 38-33 on a touchdown with 8 seconds left, the way God intended these things to end. Somewhere Bear Bryant and Darrell Royal were drinking bourbon together in whatever Valhalla is reserved for tyrannical geniuses who loved their boys too much. Friday, they do it again in Austin. The river will run 2 colors at once, the way it always has. Old men will cry in the stands without quite knowing why. Reveille 11 will bark at Bevo 15 like she's seen a ghost. Midnight yell will happen again the night before. 12,000 Aggies screaming into the dark outside the Longhorn dorms, telling ghost stories about a rivalry that refused to stay dead. Because that's the thing nobody ever understood from the outside. It was never just a game. It was the state's creation myth played out on a grass every November. The city and the country, the capital and the campus in the middle of nowhere, the people who got the bigger slice and the people who were told to be grateful for scraps. For 118 meetings, they settled it with shoulder pads and hate and love too fierce to name. 10 years without it didn't kill the rivalry. It just taught both sides how bad absence can hurt. Nobody is going to make it through this SEC schedule with just one loss. Everyone's favorite completely average nephew is back from the dead. And just how did the Aggies manage to play the bottom 8 teams in the league? The Brazos still runs muddy, like she's run all along. The Texas A&M Aggies are running directly into a buzzsaw.
Ooh. Wow.
Powerful words from my Uncle Kenny, and it has happened a few times this season, but I am going to pull the opposite direction. I think that, again, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it was the Gamecocks. When you can come back from a 27-point halftime deficit, and you are now the only school in SEC history to do that in conference play, by the way. Congratulations, Gamecocks, for being on the wrong side of history. That teaches a team something. That teaches them that nothing is too big to overcome. And though loss may seem to have its wicked grasp around your ankle and pulling you into the abyss, you can still kick, scream, claw, and fight your way back out of it into the light. I like Marcel Reed. I like the A&M Aggies, and I like all those idiots yelling the night before. Give me Texas A&M in this one.
Wow. I mean, it's a great pick. I mean, it's a really sound logic. There's no doubt about that. That may have been one of the best letters we've had from Uncle Kenny. It was.
Well,
it was
keep in mind that the Iron Bowl is not here yet, so he's probably got himself in a bit of a staged sobriety state so that he can certainly overindulge this weekend. He'll do that from time to time. It's just prep.
So for those people that are like the Dawg, that need things to dumber down a little bit, in other words, what you're saying is Uncle Kenny is sober-ish right now?
No, this particular week, what he will typically do, so after he recovers from the previous weekend, which is usually sometime late Sunday, early Monday morning, is that he will go dry. And he will go dry until Thursday morning with the first Bloody Mary of Thanksgiving. And then he nurses his way up to kickoff, and then it's on, pal. As soon as that ball is lofted into the air, they are pouring down his gullet into his belly, and I don't know. Somehow he manages to keep up with the game, but immediately after the final whistle blows, he blacks out. He doesn't fall out, he blacks out. Sometimes that may last through the weekend. Just hang on. It's going to be a wild ride. Keep your keys away from Uncle Kenny if you're nearby. He does not need to be behind the wheel of so much as a video game.
That's true. But, man, it's rivalry week, playoff implications, first champions implications of who owns what state. There's just so much on this week that we love year after year after year. And with the 12-team playoffs, it just intensifies even more. This week has got so much in it. So it's going to be an awesome, awesome week to watch college football. I'm looking forward to it. I will not be doing anything Friday and Saturday but watching college football. I might pull a Christmas tree or two out of the attic. Depends on what Mrs. Dawg says I need to do. But hey, I have to keep her happy sometimes. So there's no telling what will happen. But look, man, love us, like us, follow us, share us. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell someone. Rube, we love you. We're pulling for your Raiders. Bob, chicken's with
Warm
you.
up the vocal cords. Let's get it going, Bob.
That's right. Look, man, we've rattled on a long time this episode, man. Chicken, you got anything?
This is a big weekend with a lot of college football to watch. But remember, friends, happy wife, happy life.
Yes.
Jesus won. I am all crowed out.
All right, guys. Love you. Deuces.